My wife told the court I was hiding money. The CPA's 14-page audit cleared every dollar. I was innocent. I knew I was innocent. But sitting in that courtroom, watching my wife Clara tearfully tell the judge that I'd hidden $300,000 in secret accounts, I realized that innocence doesn't mean much when no one believes you. The courtroom was packed, friends of hers, curious onlookers, and representatives from the financial world who knew my reputation. Clara's lawyer stood confidently and presented what looked like solid evidence. Charts. Documents. Bank statements. The judge's face grew darker with each page. My heart was sinking, and I could feel the walls closing in. Everyone was staring at me like I was a criminal. Clara's tears looked genuine. Her voice shook perfectly. She told the judge that I'd always been obsessive about money, that I'd isolated her financially, that I'd built a whole hidden empire while she struggled. None of it was true. Every word was a calculated lie. But nobody could see that yet. The judge slammed his gavel and said the words I'd been dreading: full financial disclosure. Everything. Or I'm holding you in contempt of court. I found myself thinking back to when Clara and I were supposedly the perfect couple. Our friends envied us. We threw elegant dinner parties in our beautiful home. We took luxurious vacations to places like Bali and the Maldives. We looked amazing in photos, standing together at cocktail parties, smiling at the camera with our arms around each other. Everyone wanted what we had. But I knew the truth. Behind the scenes, Clara mocked my career constantly. She called me boring and complained that I'd never be truly wealthy. She said I was obsessed with details and spreadsheets like a typical financial analyst with no imagination. She'd laugh with her friends about how I tracked every penny, how I believed in living within our means, how I refused to take unnecessary risks. I tried to brush it off. I told myself that every marriage had rough moments, that her criticism came from disappointment about the lifestyle she wanted but couldn't afford. But deep down, I was beginning to see cracks in the foundation. The woman I'd married seemed to be disappearing, replaced by someone harder, more calculating. The first big sign came when I noticed a $20,000 withdrawal from our joint savings account. I asked Clara about it calmly, trying not to sound accusatory. She laughed it off as a business investment with friends. She said it was a group project that would make us money. When I asked for details, she became defensive. "You're always questioning me, Richard," she snapped. "You don't trust me. That's the problem." I backed down. I didn't want to fight. I wanted to keep the peace, even though something inside me was screaming that something was wrong. A month later, I discovered another withdrawal, this time for $50,000. Same story. Same excuse. Same defensive reaction when I asked questions. I started to realize that either Clara was making terrible financial decisions, or she was deliberately hiding something from me. I had no proof of which one it was. But the doubt was growing like a poison in my chest, slowly contaminating everything I felt about my marriage. I began tracking our finances quietly, without telling Clara. I'm a financial analyst by profession, so detailed record-keeping is second nature to me. What I found made my blood run cold. There were secret credit cards I'd never seen before, ones she'd opened without my knowledge. There were fake invoices from companies that didn't exist. There were transfers to names I didn't recognize, amounts that didn't add up, gaps in the paper trail that were clearly intentional. I started confronting Clara about it, but she was incredibly skilled at gaslighting me. "You're paranoid, Richard," she'd say, rolling her eyes. "You're being controlling. You're obsessed with money like some kind of lunatic." She'd turn my concerns around until I started questioning my own judgment. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was too focused on details. But then I found something I couldn't explain away. An unfamiliar name appeared on multiple transfers, a man named Victor. Money that left our accounts ended up in accounts with his name on them. My stomach dropped. I realized what was happening, and the realization hit me like a physical blow. I caught messages between Clara and Victor on her phone one day when she left it on the kitchen counter. The messages were brutal and humiliating. She called me boring but useful. She made jokes about my career, calling me a spreadsheet slave. She told Victor that I was too naive to ever figure out what's really going on. She told him I deserved to be taken for everything I had. Reading those messages felt like being stabbed repeatedly. My wife, the woman I'd promised my life to, was stealing from me and laughing about it with another man. I took screenshots of everything. I copied files. I gathered evidence methodically, my heart breaking with every keystroke. I told myself I was being rational, that I needed documentation for the inevitable confrontation. But really, I was just trying to survive. I was trying to hold on to myself while my entire world was falling apart. I kept my discovery to myself, pretending nothing was wrong while inside I was screaming. I became a different person, distant, quiet, strategic. Clara thought she was fooling me. She had no idea that I knew about Victor, about the money, about any of it. I used that advantage carefully. I closed accounts she didn't know about, moved money to secure places, made sure everything was legally documented and above board. I wanted to make sure that when this fell apart, and I knew it would fall apart, I had protected myself as much as possible. Clara believed she was winning. She felt confident in her lies. She didn't know that I was quietly building a fortress of documentation that would eventually prove everything. Every withdrawal, every transfer, every fake invoice, I had copies. Every message between her and Victor, I had screenshots. I was preparing for war without her knowing it. Then one day, Clara came home and casually told me she wanted a divorce. She said she deserved more, and that she was tired of pretending. Clara's divorce papers arrived at my office, delivered by a process server. They were aggressive, demanding, and outlined terms that seemed designed to destroy me financially. She wanted half of everything, which was fair in a normal situation, but she also wanted spousal support, even though she made a decent income herself. My lawyer was shocked when he reviewed the documents. "This is hostile," he said. "She's not interested in a fair split. She wants everything." But then we got hit with the real bomb. Clara's legal team filed a motion accusing me of financial fraud and money laundering. They claimed I'd hidden assets worth over $300,000 in offshore accounts. They provided evidence, though most of it was circumstantial and misleading. My lawyer shook his head in disbelief. "This is character assassination," he said quietly. "She's going to paint you as a criminal." I knew what was coming, and I wasn't ready for it. Word spread quickly through my professional community. Clara was telling everyone that I was a financial criminal, that I'd hidden money illegally, that I couldn't be trusted. Mutual friends started treating me differently. They'd cross the street when they saw me, they'd stop including me in group activities, they whispered behind my back. My company's HR department called me in for a meeting. They asked if I was under federal investigation. Panic. Fear. Humiliation. All of it crashed down on me. I tried to explain the situation, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. My biggest client, a major corporation I'd been working with for 5 years, terminated our contract. They said they couldn't afford the reputational risk of being associated with someone under suspicion for financial crimes. The accusation hadn't even been proven, but it was already destroying my career. I was being tried in the court of public opinion, and I was losing. I was completely isolated. My family called asking if the accusations were true. My closest friends stopped returning my messages. I was being treated like a pariah. I spent my evenings sitting alone in my apartment, going through my old records with obsessive intensity. I was angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. But unlike most people would be, I didn't let the anger control me. Instead, I channeled it into something productive. I organized my evidence. I created timelines. I documented everything. And then I realized something crucial. Clara's accusations lined up exactly with her own hidden transactions. Every amount she claimed I'd hidden matched money she'd actually withdrawn. She wasn't just lying, she was projecting her own crimes onto me. She was using my own meticulous record-keeping against me, twisting my financial transparency into proof of guilt. The irony was almost painful. My greatest strength, my attention to detail, had been weaponized by someone I loved. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this story and hit the subscribe button to get notified of our new series. My lawyer recommended that I hire a forensic accountant, someone who specialized in financial investigations. He connected me with Megan Doyle, a certified public accountant known for her brutal honesty and her precision. When I first met with Megan, I could tell she was someone who didn't accept excuses or half-truths. She looked at my records with an intensity that was almost frightening. "Show me everything," she said. And I mean everything. Every bank statement, every transaction, every account. Don't hold back. I handed over files and files of documentation. I showed her the evidence I'd gathered about Clara's activities. I told her the whole story. Megan listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she simply said, "This is going to take time. But I'll find the truth." Over the next several weeks, Megan went through my finances with a microscope. She traced every transaction, questioned every entry, verified every claim. And then she discovered something that made the case even worse for Clara. Her fingerprints were all over the money trail. The evidence of her guilt was clear and undeniable. Megan's advice was simple: stay silent. Don't talk publicly about any of this. Let me do my work. So I did. I kept quiet while she compiled her investigation. I didn't defend myself in the court of public opinion. I didn't try to explain the accusations or counter Clara's narrative. I just waited. After weeks of meticulous work, Megan completed her report. It was 14 pages long, and every page was filled with irrefutable proof. She'd traced every penny I'd ever made. She'd documented every transaction. She'd created a clear timeline showing exactly where the money went. And most importantly, she'd proven beyond any doubt that I had not hidden a single dollar. Every cent I'd earned was accounted for. Every expense was documented. My financial life was an open book, and that book proved my complete innocence. But Clara was banking on the opposite being true. She filed a motion to freeze my accounts, claiming I was hiding assets and might flee the country. I woke up one morning to find that all my accounts had been frozen. My credit cards were declined. I couldn't withdraw cash. I couldn't even pay for gas to drive to work. The humiliation was complete. I went to the grocery store, and my card was rejected at the checkout. People stared at me. I stayed with a friend because I couldn't afford rent. Even though I actually had enough money in the frozen accounts to live comfortably for years. The system had turned against me. Clara posted on social media about karma hitting people who steal, conveniently leaving out the fact that she was the thief. She was living her best life, partying with her lover Victor, celebrating like she'd already won. And I was homeless, humiliated, with my entire reputation in ruins. The anger inside me burned white hot, but I refused to let it consume me. Staying with my friend, I channeled all my pain into one goal: complete financial vindication. Megan called me with an update. The audit was finished. The 14-page report was bulletproof. She'd tracked Clara's transactions so clearly that there was no way any reasonable judge could doubt the truth. "You've got this," Megan told me over the phone. "I've seen a lot of financial crimes in my career, and this is cut and dry. Clara stole from you, and I can prove it mathematically." For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was still the truth. Evidence was still evidence. And justice, eventually, would have to prevail. My lawyer scheduled another court hearing. This time, I would have the ammunition I needed. In the weeks before the hearing, Clara was living like she'd already won. She was partying, going to clubs, flaunting her newfound wealth on social media. Her boyfriend Victor had bought her a car, an expensive luxury vehicle that appeared in all her Instagram photos. But something about that car bothered me. I mentioned it to Megan during one of our calls. Megan went quiet for a moment, then said, "Send me the photos. Let me check something." She called me back an hour later. "Richard," she said slowly, "I need to tell you something. That car was purchased using the exact account numbers that appear in my audit. The money came directly from your joint account. Your wife literally bought that car with stolen money. The car. The symbol of her victory. The trophy of her betrayal. It was purchased with my own money, money she'd stolen from me." The courtroom was crowded again when the second hearing began. Clara looked confident, almost smug. She wore an expensive dress and diamond earrings, probably purchased with stolen money. Her lawyer repeated the accusations. "Your Honor, my client's ex-husband has clearly hidden significant assets. We need more time to investigate." I sat quietly, letting them talk. I didn't interrupt. I didn't try to defend myself verbally. I just waited for the moment when the truth would be presented. My lawyer stood up and announced that we had a forensic audit prepared. He called Megan to the stand. Megan walked up carrying her 14-page report like it was a weapon. And in a way, it was. It was a weapon against deception, against lies, against manipulation. Megan began presenting her findings with the precision of a surgeon. She showed the courtroom every transaction. She traced every dollar. She showed the accounts Clara had opened secretly. She showed the transfers to Victor's name. She showed the fake invoices. She showed the pattern of theft that had been occurring for years. The courtroom was completely silent. Even Clara's lawyer looked uncertain. Megan's voice was calm and professional as she laid out the evidence. "Mr. Richard's financial records are meticulous and completely transparent. Every penny he earned is accounted for. Every expense is documented. He has hidden nothing." Then she showed the other side of the ledger, Clara's secret accounts, her transfers, her hidden transactions. Mrs. Clara, on the other hand, has systematically withdrawn money from joint accounts and transferred them to accounts in her name and in the name of Victor Martinez. The judge's face went from angry to confused to horrified. "Mrs. Williams," the judge said slowly, "would you like to explain this?" Clara panicked. I watched her carefully constructed facade crumble in real time. She tried to deny everything, but the numbers were too clear. She tried to blame her lawyer for advising her to hide assets, but that didn't make sense. She tried to blame me for pushing her to it, but Megan's timeline proved she'd started the theft years before any serious marital problems. Finally, Clara broke down completely. She burst into tears and claimed she wasn't thinking straight, that she was confused, that Richard had driven her to it. The judge wasn't moved. She'd committed fraud. She'd stolen from her husband. She'd falsely accused him of crimes he didn't commit. The judge called for sanctions against Clara and her legal team for filing a frivolous claim. But more importantly, the judge ordered a criminal investigation into her accounts. The courtroom verdict went viral online within hours. News outlets picked up the story. Woman accuses husband of hiding money, gets caught red-handed by forensic audit. Social media erupted. Clara's carefully curated image shattered instantly. People who'd believed her story started seeing the truth. Her Instagram followers turned on her. People started sharing screenshots of her bragging about scamming me. Her workplace found out about the fraud. And then Victor, the man she'd stolen for, the man she'd cheated with, simply vanished. He disappeared with the remaining stolen funds, leaving Clara alone and broken. She'd sacrificed everything for him, and he'd abandoned her the moment she became a liability. Standing in my apartment after the hearing, surrounded by the documents that had saved my life, I felt something unexpected. Not pure joy. Not complete satisfaction. Victory doesn't erase betrayal. The hurt was still there. The anger was still there. But now it was mixed with something else, peace. I'd won, but at a cost I could never recover. The woman I'd loved had been a lie. My lawyer called with more news. Clara had filed for bankruptcy. She had nothing left. My name was officially cleared. The judge had awarded me damages and full ownership of our house. I'd won on every level. But winning didn't feel the way I'd imagined it would. Subscribe now if you haven't already. This is where things get even more intense. The poetic justice came quickly after that. Clara's assets were seized by the court. The luxury car she'd bragged about, the one bought with my stolen money, was sold to pay back restitution. Her jewelry was taken. Her apartment was lost. Her reputation was destroyed. She'd gone from the woman who'd mocked me as boring and unambitious to completely destitute. She'd tried to take everything from me, and instead, she'd lost everything herself. The judge's ruling was clear: I was innocent. Clara was guilty. The truth had prevailed. My name was restored. My career could be salvaged. I could rebuild. She, on the other hand, had nothing left to rebuild from. Poetic justice is real, I realized. It's not always quick, but it's real. Rebuilding my life wasn't simple or fast. I had to repair the damage to my professional reputation. I had to reconnect with clients who'd abandoned me. I had to prove that the accusations against me had been lies. But now I had something I didn't have before: proof. I had Megan's 14-page audit. I had the court's vindication. I had the evidence of my complete innocence. Slowly, clients started returning. My company rehired me to my old position. People who distanced themselves started reaching out with apologies. I started a financial consulting business on my own, and clients sought me out specifically because of what I'd been through. They wanted someone they could trust completely. The scandal that had nearly destroyed me became the foundation for rebuilding something stronger. Megan called one day and asked me to meet her at a cafe. We sat at a small table by the window, and she smiled, the first time I'd seen her smile since we'd started working together. "I wanted to congratulate you," she said. "You did the right thing by documenting everything so carefully. Your records made my job almost too easy. When someone keeps the kind of meticulous records you kept, the truth becomes impossible to deny." We talked for hours about the case, about what we'd learned, about the resilience it takes to maintain integrity when you're being falsely accused. Megan told me about other cases she'd worked on, situations where the guilty party had won because they had better lawyers and better stories. But in my case, the truth had prevailed because the evidence was undeniable. "You won because you were honest," she said simply. "That's something that can't be beaten in court, no matter how good someone's lies are." A reporter reached out to me about doing a story on the case. At first, I was hesitant. I wanted to move forward and leave the whole thing behind. But the reporter explained that the story had already gone viral online. There were millions of views on the courtroom footage. People were calling me the man who outsmarted his lying ex. My meticulous record-keeping had become legendary in financial circles. So I agreed to the interview. The story went even more viral. News outlets picked it up. I was being called a hero, a whistleblower, someone who'd stood up against fraud and won. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd gone from being accused of financial crimes to being celebrated as someone who'd fought them. And then I got a message. Clara's employer had seen the viral video. They'd fired her. Months after everything had settled, Clara showed up at my office. She looked completely different, worn down, broken, desperate. She begged me for forgiveness. She said she was sorry. She said she'd made terrible mistakes. She said she knew I'd won. I listened to her carefully. I didn't interrupt. I didn't show anger or satisfaction. I just listened. When she finished, I said something that I meant completely. I never needed to win. I just needed the truth. Then I walked away. I didn't engage further. I didn't offer her money or help or comfort. I simply walked back into my life and closed the door on that chapter. That evening, Megan texted me asking if I wanted to have dinner and celebrate properly. I said yes. Sometimes moving forward means surrounding yourself with people who believe in you when no one else does. I rebuilt my life stronger and wiser than before. My reputation was restored. My career was thriving. I'd learned that honesty and meticulous record-keeping are the only defenses that truly matter against deception. I learned that the truth, while it might take time to prevail, always eventually does. I learned that victory doesn't require revenge, it only requires integrity and patience. I hung a framed copy of Megan's 14-page audit on my office wall. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. It reminds me that evidence tells a story that liars can never change. It reminds me that detailed documentation is a form of protection. It reminds me that I survived something that could have destroyed me because I refused to compromise my integrity. I didn't lose a marriage when Clara asked for a divorce. I lost a liar. And I gained something far more valuable, my peace. I gained the knowledge that truth is more powerful than deception. I gained my freedom. And I gained the strength that comes from standing firm in the face of false accusation. In the end, I didn't need revenge. I just needed the truth. And the truth set me free.